Hi, everybody. All right, so I'm going to be doing, after some consideration, some longer lectures and that you'll be able to watch. I'll be uploading this along with the PowerPoint slides, and then we'll have some group discussion questions to go along with it as well. But I wanted to talk today. We would be meeting in just a few minutes up in the library if we were still on campus. And I gave you a short video yesterday about metaphorical theology. Today I want to give a longer kind of discussion about it for you to think about. Like I said in the first video, the project in McFaig's book is to be helping us think about language, think about the language that we use to talk about God. And she says, right on page 3, she says, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names can never hurt me." But it is, as we know, the names that hurt. One would prefer the sticks and stones. Names matter because what we call something, how we name it, is to a great extent what it is to us. And if you think about people who are called, who are abused and called bad names by the people around them, you know, those names have an effect. If you grow up and you're told that you're worthless and ugly, then you will believe those things. That'll hurt you. If you grow up and you're told that you're beautiful and loved and that you matter, then those words make a difference. And so, as I said last time, McFaig's whole project is based on the assumption that words matter, and that our words for God matters. Our current language, as I said last time, is problematic, and therefore we need new God language. We need to try different language for God out. She calls it on page 20 a thought experiment. That what she's doing is a thought experiment. What models and metaphors should we use for God? What if we tried some other ones? What would happen? What if we tried imagining God in different ways? What would happen to us? What would happen to our understanding of God? So she's got a critique of the old metaphors that we use to talk about God, our usual metaphors. And these are what she calls the monarchical model, like a monarch, like a king, the monarchical model. And those are our words for God that are masculine and like dominant, like a king or a lord. And she sees these as the whole book is really a critique of these ideas, these ways of imagining God. And it's really important that for McFaig, that's exactly what all models for God, all words for God are just ideas. They're just metaphors. We only have metaphors. We don't have a direct description of who God is. We only have metaphors. So I want to talk a little bit about what a metaphor is. So if you remember from English classes, a metaphor is when we call something else to illuminate something about it. So we might say that people are sheep. So when we say that, that's a metaphor. It's a cliche, but it's a metaphor. And when we say people are sheep, we are saying one thing about them. We're saying that they don't think for themselves and they'll follow who's ever in charge. Obviously, saying that about people isn't going to give us all of the information about people. It's only applicable to one particular characteristic, right? And so if we think about, for example, let's say if we said about love is a battlefield, like from a song or something. If we use that metaphor, love is a battlefield. Well, that might be true in some contexts if you're having problems in your love life, but all forms of love are not going to be able to be described by saying love is a battlefield, right? When you bring your new baby home from the hospital, that's not that kind of love. That's not going to work. And so metaphors, while they illuminate certain aspects of an idea, they exclude others. Okay, so we have these dominant metaphors of God as King and Lord and Father, but they are not exhaustive, and yet we insist on them. We insist on saying that they are exhaustive. If if we say that God is a king, it has to be a metaphor, right? Because it can't be literal. We don't have any literal truth about God. And if we say that God is a king, then in that metaphor, all kinds of things are being assumed. But it also excludes other ways of understanding God. So if God is a king, then we are loyal subjects. If God is a king, then we have to obey. If God is a king, then God has all the power and we have none. If God is a king, then we have to keep our distance. A lot of people like to talk about God as their friend, but kings aren't a good model if you want to think about God as a friend. Kings don't really have friends. They just have people that are under them that have to serve them and obey them. So while it might be possible in some contexts to imagine God as a king, McFaig wants to tell us that it shouldn't be the only way. It shouldn't be the only way we think about God. So what does she want to propose as an alternative? It's not that she wants to change. It's not that she thinks she has a truth. She thinks that we need a different, what if we tried on different language? What if we tried on a different metaphor for God? And the one that she wants us to try on in this first chapter that you're reading, well, chapter 2, right? First chapter, she talks about metaphorical theology. And in the second chapter, she talks about God in the world. And so the first way that she wants us to imagine thinking about God and imagine how it would change things is to talk about the world as God's body. And she's not saying, though, that the world is God's body. She's saying, what would happen if we imagined the world as God's body? How would that change our relationship with each other? How would that change our notion of sin? The idea of sin, if God is a king, is breaking a law, breaking a rule. And this is the idea of sin that most of us grew up with. Don't do that. God made a law. Don't break the law or you'll get in trouble with the king. That's what sin is in this model. But if you had a different way of imagining God, not as a king in a faraway castle who was powerful, who had to be obeyed, but here with us, God as part of the world or the world as God's body, then we would have a different, maybe, relationship with God. What would sin look like if the world were imagined as God's body? And McFaig gives us quite a bit of information on that and helps us to think about that. She says on page 62, how would we feel and act differently in a world that we perceived as the body of God? In the monarchical model, the king is far from the world. God is far from the world, not here in the world, but far from it. A king doesn't mix with the low-life subjects, right? The king has to sit on his throne in the castle on the hill. But that's just an idea. That's just a way of thinking. And it's a way of thinking that McFaig thinks has taken hold so strongly that we imagine that it's true. We think it's literally true, this imaginative framework. And she wants us to say it isn't. We have options for thinking about God in different ways. And if we imagine the world as God's body, a lot of things would change. Okay, so that's where I want to stop for today. I'm going to put up some PowerPoint slides that kind of go into it in more detail. I don't think it's going to be possible for me to lecture for 90 minutes, or maybe not even desirable for you to listen for 90 minutes. But I wanted to just get some of these main points out there about metaphor, about the monarchical model, about the world as God's body. As I said that last time, the real problem that she sees is that this monarchical model of God, God as a king and a lord, is encouraging us to be passive in the world, not to take responsibility for the world, not to take responsibility for our role in it. She's focused on and environmental destruction, and she's also focused on nuclear destruction. She says that we have become co-creators with God since our ability to destroy all life through nuclear weapons. What she means by that is that we have the ability to decide whether or not life on Earth continues. And because we have that grave responsibility, that we maybe never should have had, but it's too late now because we have it. We need models of God that encourage us to take responsibility for the world, for life, and for each other. And here we are in this unprecedented moment of having to decide what it means to look after each other, what it means to look after the world. And so I really think that some of the things that we're reading in this book should be um, things that we can even translate into our current situation. A couple of other questions that you might have for your journals. You should keep writing in your journals. I had said 2 pages per class period. I don't think that we need to have like a page, such a strict page like goal anymore, because our classes are so highly different. But just the main thing is just keep writing about what you're reading, keep writing about what you're thinking about, keep writing about how what you're reading relates to what's going on in your life. Just keep reflecting. That's really all, a few pages a week, and that should be enough. um, and I'll put up some discussion questions in a Google Doc. I'll put up some PowerPoint slides that go more in depth into what I was just saying now. And I will continue to, we'll offer opportunities for us to reflect and read together. I did have an office hour earlier today, and a couple people dropped in. It worked out really well. If you want to speak with me in person, then send me a request. I'm going to hold office hours at various times during the week so that we can talk in person. And I also think, and upon further reflection, that I won't be using Zoom. I'm going to try Google Hangouts for group discussion times for us, and we'll see how that goes. This is really just the first day, the first week, and we'll have to see what works and what doesn't. And any feedback you can give me about what's working for you and what isn't working for you will be greatly appreciated. Okay, I'll stop for now, and then I'll put up another lecture in time for Wednesday, and also some discussion questions. Okay, take care. Thanks.